Many attendees of the Nova Party had stopped their cars, seeking refuge from the relentless rocket barrage in nearby bomb shelters. They believed they were safe. But at 7:09 a.m., Hamas terrorists emerged from within the kibbutz, having infiltrated through the back gate. They began a brutal massacre just outside the front gate, indiscriminately shooting at any person they could find. In a scene of sheer terror, a terrorist hunted down two young women as they tried to flee for their lives. He relentlessly pursued them, catching one of them and killing her instantly. He then unleashed his fury on others along Road 232. The second woman faced a horrific moment that echoed the darkest chapters of Jewish history. The Hamas terrorists showed no mercy, killing both women solely because they were Jewish.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Documenting Reality, brought to you by the Documentary Channel. Today we have filmmaker Igal Hecht, and my gosh, what are you up to? Like 30 films now? Probably close than that.
70?
70. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Just
I
amazing.
like it. Not all mine, 50 are mine, and
Mhm.
70 that I've worked on.
Okay, well, with my math, that makes 30 or more.
There you go.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and you just literally got off a plane from Vancouver.
Yes, hence my appearance. I apologize. The last time you and I spoke, way, way back, uh, I was a very much clean shaven, etc. But I just got
Hmm
back from a shoot in Vancouver, and hence the beard, and hence the
hmm
thing. I literally landed about 2 hours ago.
hmm
So hopefully I'll be coherent somewhat, more so than usual.
I think you'll do just fine. So you have a film debuting on the documentary channel.
Yes,
I think February 28th,
that's correct.
somewhere in
Yes,
that
I'm very
range.
excited about it. Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about the film?
Sure. The Killing Roads is a film that exposes the horrific and barbaric attacks of Palestinian terrorists on Israel on October 7th, when on that horrific day, Palestinian terrorists from Gaza murdered 1,200 Jews. Uh, they raped, they burned children, they raped women, they murdered men. Um, Again, the most barbaric attack against Jews since the Holocaust. Um, the film specifically looks at what occurred on the roads, namely Road 34 and Road 232, where the majority of people who were murdered on that road. 250 people were murdered on the roads. People who were just out for a jog or bike, or just it was a beautiful Saturday morning, so they were just out as families, and then also people who were trying to escape the Nova Festival, who had to escape using Road 232. That was the only way to escape. And the Palestinian terrorists, some of them from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, regular citizens from Gaza, uh, basically ambushed people in various junction points around the road, creating kill zones and killing them, executing them, burning their bodies. And all of this is showed in the film. It is a very tragic, very graphic film. It doesn't just rely on talking heads and testimonials, but rather it shows you actual footage of what happened on the roads from Hamas, from the survivors we interviewed, and also from an organization called United Hatzalah, which is an ambulance organization in Israel, whose amazing very courageous members were on those roads from almost the beginning of the attacks, trying to save people. And their ambulances were equipped with dash cam footage, with dash cams. So I received the 50 hours of dash cam footage and I went through it, frame by frame. And we illustrate almost minute by minute what happened on those roads. Um, this is not an easy movie to watch. I always say this to people. This is really not an easy movie to watch. It is extremely graphic. It is extremely tragic. It is very, very sad. It breaks your heart. But above everything, it shows the reality and it shows the true barbaric nature of these savage terrorists and what they wanted and what they did. It wasn't just enough to kill Israelis. They murdered people point blank, execution style. They burned their bodies. They desecrated their bodies. They raped the women. It was as horrific as it gets. And this is what people fail to realize. This is what Palestinian society, what Arab society in Gaza is all about. And that's what the film basically covers.
Mhm. I'm guessing this is far and away the most difficult film you've had to make.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's like absolutely soul crushing.
Absolutely. It's soul crushing making it. It's soul crushing watching it. I have made about 7 movies about genocides, from Rwanda to Cambodia to Bangladesh, the Darfur Yazidi genocide, the Holocaust. By far, this was the most soul crushing um, film I've made. It was very personal. And I go to the roads. The entire film, except for 2 interviews, is filmed on the roads. We take people back to where they survived. We really give the viewer an idea of what happened. And it was very soul crushing. It was a very hard movie to make because this is the kind of movie that you wish you never have to make.
What gives you the courage to make a movie like this? Like, I don't think the average person could make a movie like this.
I think it's a bit, honestly, a bit dramatic for me to say courage there. It wasn't really courage. I had to do it because I was going nuts here. I wanted to
Mhm.
actually do it earlier on. And in fact, I was working on a film earlier on that's currently in production and going into post-production with Israeli director Dotan Nave and Lior Cohen and Gabriel Volkovic, who normally film with me. And we were working on another film about a group of women survivors from Kibbutz Kfar Aza who survived the seventh, and how do they move forward? And we've been following them for about a year and a half, and this movie will come out next year. I'm producing and editing it. Dotan is the director. And we were working on that film, but it wasn't enough. I had to be on the ground. The story about the roads was really interesting for me because I kept seeing videos, short videos that were released about what happened from they released a few videos from like a Hamas GoPro footage. And then I read an article, Haaretz in the New York Times, which I normally don't read, but the article
Mhm.
was very interesting in terms of the roads themselves. And that sort of I started forming the idea. And while I saw pieces on Israeli news about specific stories, nobody really did a whole movie about the road, the whole stretch of the road. So that sort of got me thinking about it. And I'm a filmmaker, and like I said before, I've done movies that have dealt with very hard subject matter, Rwanda, Cambodia, the Holocaust, Yazidi genocide, which was just as horrific, where I had to watch ISIS footage to
Mhm.
make it. So I'm used to it. There's something in me that sort of something jumps in, clicks in that says, I'm making a film, and you were able to distance yourself. Here it was even harder than usual, but this is what I do. This is my job. I haven't done a political documentary or of this kind of nature in many years. It's been more fluff pieces for me in the last 5 years, which I've really enjoyed. I used to make only political documentaries. And, now it was more about faith and more art and archaeology and things along those lines. And I enjoyed doing those. But when I made the decision to really make this film, which almost a year to the date that we're speaking, um, I went at it full force like I always do. And I had a great team, small team, Lior Cohen and Einat, who did our production managing, and we were able to pull it off. And it was, Lior Cohen and myself just driving up and down Road 232 and interviewing people.
Hmm.
And I felt it was very important to make this film because there was so much denial about what was happening, so many lies, so much denial. And while the Israeli stories are important, the Israeli media was doing a great story. They were doing it in Hebrew. They were speaking to Israeli audiences. I speak Hebrew. I'm an Israeli Canadian, Canadian Israeli, however you want to look at it. And I've always made films about Israel for an international audience. And so I found
Hmm.
myself in a position where I could do that. And, no Canadian broadcaster wanted the movie. No one wanted to make this film. No one wanted to show this film. And so it was self-funded. We had a small GoFundMe campaign. Didn't do as well as I had hoped. So
Hmm.
it was self-funded, and the whole point was to make the movie. The whole point was to fight, use it as a tool, a factual tool backed up by visuals, as hard as they are, to use it to show what actually occurred on that day and fight the unfortunate, never-ending denial from various Arab forces and woke progressive forces about what happened on the 7th, and anti-Semitic neo-Nazi individuals as well. All of them have come together to deny what happened on the 7th. And so this movie to me, is a tool to fight against that. And I think it's very important. And I think, filmmakers have the capability to bring this information to people on a large scale.
Hmm.
And thanks to the documentary channel, I'm hoping that it gets to even a wider audience.
Hmm.
And that's really the main reason I made this, because I felt it was very important to make it, and I could do it. I'm sure other people could do it as well, but I felt that I could do it and I could do it properly. And the reviews and the people who have written about the film and the people who have watched the film have been incredibly moved by the movie.
Hmm.
Uh, at the same time, it's a very hard film to watch. I can't stress that enough. There's a big 10-second warning beforehand, and
Hmm.
I really warn people. I had journalists who couldn't watch it. It's just hard. I had one journalist I remember in particular in Israel who's seen everything, and he told me he had to watch this film in four different parts because it was just too hard for him to watch it.
Yeah. I think the traditional or mainstream media gave more support to allowing trans athletes into women's sports and lockers than they did to Jews defending themselves.
I think, setting that issue aside, I think they just decided that Jews were the bad guys, even though the Jews were attacked, the Jews were murdered, burnt, and raped. And we're going to do everything we can to halal this radical Islamic wave that spread across North America. Look, if you want to know where we're heading towards in Canada, for example, just look at the UK. You know, where the UK is today, which is basically censoring speech against Islamic radicalization and allowing Islamic radicalization to take over the country, allowing violence against the Jewish community and excusing it. This is where Canada is heading towards. We have a public
Mm-hmm.
broadcast that excuses Islamic radicalization and excuses attacks against Jews. We have mayors who are doing next to nothing. We have a prime minister soon to leave, but still a liberal party and a prime minister blood libeling Israel constantly, even though they were proven wrong, just like with the El Shifa hospital when he jumped up and claimed Israel killed 500 Palestinians. And then when that was proven wrong, he said absolutely nothing afterwards. This is a prime
Hmm.
minister, a serious prime minister of a country, blood libeling Israel. And you see this in Ireland, where the prime minister is fully anti-Semitic, and you have Jews being removed from a Holocaust celebration because they're calling him out for being an anti-Semite. This is the world we live in. And unfortunately, the media is too afraid to deal with Islamic radicalization because it's growing and growing and growing and growing, and because they'll be called racists. So instead, they pick on the Jew.
I mean, even when they captured and neutralized Yahya Sinwar, what was he carrying?
Yeah,
An
I know.
UNRWA employee passport card.
Right. I mean, listen, I mean, all of the Israeli hostages were kept at UNRWA hospital or underneath UNRWA hospitals and UNRWA institute. You know, the majority of Israeli hostages. It's actually really quite insane. You have an international body in UNRWA that is facilitating the murder of Jews. My Canadian tax dollars are facilitating pay for slay, where the Palestinian Authority, the good guys, right? The PLO, the good guys, they're not Hamas, are
Hmm.
paying nearly $500 million a year in aid to terrorists who murder Jews and are sitting in Israeli jails. They've created
Hmm.
millionaires. They've made it an industry where if you murder a Jew, you know you're getting 10 to 20,000 a month while you're sitting in jail.
Hmm.
It's actually, it's mind-boggling. The problem is the world doesn't understand this and know this, right? They see Israel going into Gaza. They see the destroyed homes. Every home in Gaza had a tunnel because to build a home in Gaza, you have to go to Hamas and get a permit. Hamas will only give you a permit if they're allowed to build a tunnel underneath your home. The entire infrastructure of Gaza were tunnels, terror tunnels, etc. And
Hmm.
nobody understands and nobody knows this.
So we might have to end up making this a two-parter, but I want to talk more about the movie itself.
Mhm.
And like, despite being shocked by everything that you encountered, there had to be one or two things you encountered that were just like, just above and beyond anything you could have expected.
I'll tell you the truth. I think the one, it wasn't so much, and you see it in the movie. Um, I think the bus shelter, the shelter, sorry, the bomb shelter near the bus station, various ones, four or five of them. When you're in there, and I say it in the film, and you realize how small it is, how
Mm-hmm.
tiny, it's really like a tiny, tiny room. And then you had 40, 50, 60 people in there crammed in. And then these bastards came in and just threw grenades and started shooting inside. Didn't even go inside, just started
Mm-hmm.
throwing grenades and killing and murdering people. You know, that takes me back to the Holocaust right there. Many attendees of the Nova Party had stopped their cars, seeking refuge from the relentless rocket barrage in nearby bomb shelters. They believed they were safe. But at 7:09 a.m., Hamas terrorists emerged from within the kibbutz, having infiltrated through the back gate. They began a brutal massacre just outside the front gate, indiscriminately shooting at any person they could find. In a scene of sheer terror, a terrorist hunted down two young women as they tried to flee for their lives. He relentlessly pursued them, catching one of them and killing her instantly. He then unleashed his fury on others along Road 232. The second woman faced a horrific moment that echoed the darkest chapters of Jewish history. The Hamas terrorists showed no mercy, killing both women solely because they were Jewish.